Good morning, students. So today we are back with the same chapter, that is landforms of the earth, and we are going to continue with the same and complete the chapter with the last topic, that is plains. So we have learnt about mountains in detail, plateaus. Today is the last part of the chapter, that is plains, which we will be learning in detail. The plains, which you can see it on your screen, it's a level land. It's a level, gently undulating land with relatively minor differences in elevation. So it is almost completely plain, and the elevation might not go more than 150 meters above the sea level. So a plain is a level or a gentle undulating land with relatively minor differences in elevation, and it is less than 150 meters above the sea level. Plains may be completely level or might be having a gently rolling topography. Rolling means there might be some highlands on the plains. They have a gradual slope, extensive flat area with low latitude. You can see over here on the diagram how the land is gradually sloping. That is why the river is also taking the same slope. They are found in all types of climatic regions. Now, plains may be formed by internal forces of the earth as well as external forces of the earth, like degradation and heavy deposition. So both are responsible for the formation of plains, internal forces as well as external forces. The Great Plain of northern India, you can see on the map of India, the Great Plains of northern India, which is also known as the Indo-Gangetic Plain, has an average elevation of about 200 meters. But near the delta, it is only about 6 to 10 meters above the sea level. We'll be learning about it later part of the topic. So this is the Great Plains of India, formed by the Ganga and its major tributaries, and here we have the Sundarban Delta where it meets the sea or the Bay of Bengal. Now, as far as types of plains are concerned, there are two major types of plains: the structural plain and the depositional plain. As far as the structural plains are concerned, they are formed due to endogenic forces, that is, forces which are coming from inside the earth. And this endogenic forces can lead to raising or lowering of the area. You can see over here, this is a photograph of a structural plain. It has raised the land somewhere and it has also lowered the land. These actions are called upliftment and subsidence respectively. These actions can cause the plains to be formed and they are known as structural plains. Structural plains are found in Kerala, in the Malabar coast and they have been formed due to the upliftment of the continental shelf. Elsewhere, upliftment of the continental shelf has occurred in Belgium, Holland and Germany. However, there are plains, that is structural plains, which have also been formed due to depression of extensive lowlands. The Siberian plain in northern part of Asia and the Great Plains of central part of North America has been formed due to the depression of extensive lowlands. Depositional plains. This is another major type of plain. Now, depositional plains have been formed by various agents of gradation which do their work of erosion, and they transport the eroded material and deposit the load in low-lying areas such as depressions, lakes, seabeds, so on. You can see over here how erosion is occurring and the rivers are carrying the sediments and are depositing it wherever they are flowing. So they form plains near the coastal area. There might be lakes which are formed by the action of rivers, and later on these areas might be filled with deposition of eroded material. When the deposition of sediments takes place on a large scale, such plains are formed. So deposition are occurring in large scale, and we can see depositional plains are formed in large areas. Now they are classified into three major types. That is, depositional plain is found or is classified into three major types. They are alluvial plains, Piedmont alluvial plains and flood plains, as well as delta plains. That is, depositional plains have got alluvial plains which are formed due to the deposition by rivers. You can see over here a river is coming down the mountain and it has formed a plain over on its sides. So the plains formed by gradual deposition of alluvium brought down by the streams are known as alluvial plains. So the rivers bring down a very fine silt which is known as alluvium and spreads it on its sides. Now these alluvial plains are of three types: Piedmont alluvial plains, flood plains and delta plains. Now let's study about Piedmont alluvial plains. Now as the river leaves the mountain and enters a plain area, the slope of the land suddenly changes from a steep to a gentle area. The slope becomes suddenly very gentle. Now it is very difficult for the river to carry all the eroded material especially pebbles and boulders with it. So what does the river do? The river begins to deposit the load right at the foothill of the areas in the form of an alluvial fan. So you can see on your screen, it looks like a fan. Now these alluvial fans form a Piedmont alluvial plain. Many such alluvial fans can join together and form a Piedmont alluvial plain. In India, it is known as the Bhabbar, which is found along the foothills of the Himalayas. So, from the Himalayas, several rivers come down, and when they form several alluvial plains in the form like fan, that is alluvial fans, all these alluvial fans join together to form a Piedmont plain, which is known as Bhabbar, and it is found in the foothills of the Himalayas. The Bhabbar is the coarse material of pebbles and boulders which are brought down by the rivers of the Himalayas. Next we come to floodplains. The floodplains are normally formed in the middle course of the river, where the river begins to flow very sluggishly. So you can see the river is now loaded with material, and because it is a flat land, so the speed of the river gets reduced and it begins to meander. Can you see? It begins to move like a snake, which is known as meandering. The load has now turned from pebbles and coarse materials to clay and sand, finer materials. Now when the river overflows its banks, so when there is a flood-like situation, the river overflows its bank and it makes floodplains. So when the water recedes, these areas which had been flooded by the river is known as a floodplain. Here it is shown, and here in this diagram it is shown where the river has got flooded. The next is delta plains. Now deltas are formed at the mouth of the river. So you can see this is the sea or ocean, and the river has now come to its old stage and is about to meet the ocean. Here the river flows very slowly due to the excess load which it is carrying. The large amount of silt is being deposited every year during the floods, and the soil gets replenished. So the river is now being channelized into several distributaries, and all these distributaries are forming a delta, that is a triangle shape feature, and they deposit all the material which they have brought in along their sides. Delta plains support agriculture and they are very fertile. We have already come to know about the Ganga and Brahmaputra delta in Bangladesh, which is also known as the Sundarban delta, and it is found over here. So here the Ganga makes a very large delta which is known as the Sundarban. Elsewhere, deltas have been formed by Huanghe in China and the Nile in Egypt. Now let us learn about glacial deposits. Now these plains have been formed by the receding of the glacier. So when very cold situation prevailed, that is the ice age, large areas of the earth was filled with continental glaciers. But as warmer conditions started to occur, the glaciers began to retreat. You can see over here how the glacier is retreating. When the glaciers were retreating, they scored and scratched the land, forming large number of lakes. These plains are very extensive, very fertile, and they have been formed by the deposition of the debris and moraines which have been brought down by the glaciers. When the glaciers melt, they leave the deposits behind, and these forms the large plains which are known as glacial plains. This kind of glacial plains we can find in northern part of North America, that is the Canadian Shield. Western European plains are also a good example of glacial deposits. Lacustrine Plains. Now these plains are the result of filling of a lake due to the heavy deposition of sediments or silt brought by the river. It takes a very long period to fill this old lake basin. Ultimately, it turns into an agricultural land. The Kashmir valleys, the plains of Hungary in Europe are some of the good examples of lacustrine plains. Loess. First, let us understand what is loess. Loess is the fine sand which has been brought by winds and deposited along the rivers. Now when sand comes in contact with water, it becomes pretty fertile. Most of the best quality of rice which we are having in India actually comes from Rajasthan, where large areas of sandy tracts have been irrigated by canals and have been turned into loess plains or sandy plains. Here loess is found mostly along the river Huanghe. Now these plains are formed by the materials transported by wind and deposited along the rivers in extensive areas. Loess is a very fine dust, rich in lime and yellowish in color. You can see the color over here, slightly yellowish. It is carried by winds from barren interior areas of deserts and deposited along the margins of the deserts. Or it can also be deposited along the banks of the rivers. Northwest China, western Rajasthan and western parts of USA are the areas where lowest plains have been formed extensively. Coastal plains. The coastal plains are the result of depositional work done by the sea waves. Sea waves keep moving from the sea towards the land. And these tidal forces bring in sediments and keep depositing them along the coastal areas over here. It forms tidal lowlands, coastal swamps, and such examples of coastal plain is found in Belgium, Netherlands, and also large areas of the coastal areas of India. Now, plains are of great importance for us. They have been cradles of ancient civilizations like the Indus Valley Civilization, the Mesopotamian Valley Civilization along the river Tigris and Euphrates in Iraq, the Nile Civilization or the Egyptian civilization along the river Nile. So they have been ancient cradles of civilization. Plains made by alluvial soil deposited by rivers support agriculture. So all these areas support agriculture. So we find a heavy population wherever there are plains. They are also favorable for development of communication because of being very flat. Plains provide us with favorable conditions for plants and animals to live as well as human settlements. Since these areas are flat, so we find the settlements, houses coming up in large numbers. River flowing along these areas provide us with suitable navigation. And the plains are providing us great facilities for trade, manufacturing, etc. So most of the cities in the world are located along the plains. So we have learnt what are plains and what are the different types of plains. With that, we complete the chapter on landforms of the earth. Thank you.